Hi everyone, welcome to the Pro MMA Betting Podcast. UFC 259 this weekend, best card of the year so far, absolutely stacked, bottom to top. Just hope we don't lose too many fights. I think it's inevitable, climate we're in at the moment, that we're going to lose one or two fights. Hopefully not one or two other fights that I've got action on, as tends to be happening every week at the moment. But it's Thursday now, no fights have fallen through so far, but you just don't know until up until the fights start, really, anything could happen and there could be someone drop out. But fingers crossed, absolutely stacked card. I think they've got about 15 fights. I think it's something they need to do in the current climate is try and fill every card up with 13, 14, 15 fights because they're just losing fights every week. Like last week, I think we ended up with 9 fights. But let's hope they hold together. Stacked card. I really like it from a fan perspective and a better. A lot of action on this card. Really do like some of the spots. Favourite card of the year from a betting and a fan perspective. We'll just recap on last week as we always do. Last couple of weeks I haven't been confident at all on the cards, and it's been replicated in the betting action I've had. I just haven't had much action at all. Last week the only bet I had was a unit and a half on Jimmy Rivera. I knew the bet was dead 3 minutes into round one. Those calf kicks were just paying dividends for Pedro, and it's just a game changer, them calf kicks. I think I'm just going to avoid betting. You know, as I always say, I never say a rule is set in stone, but the general rule of thumb now, I'm just going to avoid guys or betting against guys that have got good calf kicks because it's such a game changer. From a bettor, I'd like to see them banned, to be honest, but from a fighting perspective, it's just not justified. You can't ban them. They're a dangerous weapon, but so is kicking someone in the head or kneeing someone in the head. I can't see the justification for banning them. As a bettor, that's my justification, but the sport isn't based on a bettor's opinion, so I don't see them going anywhere. So I just need to tread carefully moving forward, betting against guys who have got really good calf kicks because they're just a complete pain in the arse. They just completely changed the fight, and so we lost the bet there. Live betting, we had a few bets. I'll just tell you what we had. So we took Thiago Moises after round one. He was about -137. Took a shot on Krylov. Now, this is a general rule of thumb I have. Is if a fight is 1-1 going into round 3, I would generally take the dog. I know momentum was with Ankalaev and it looked like he was taking over, but guys, you can go back and watch so many fights over the years where it's 1-1 going into round 3. It looks like all the momentum's with fighter X, and then fighter A comes out and wins round 3. It's very common, and what happens is the books always overreact to someone having a strong round 2. And they will really put the line in favour of that person. And it's long term, betting the dog in this situation is a winning strategy. I've been doing it for a long time. So I took a shot on Krylov. He was plus 400. I thought that was way too wide for a fight that was 1-1. And yes, it looked like Ankalaev was going to win. And obviously, if the line was even, or even Ankalaev was -150, -200, I probably would have taken Ankalaev. But plus 400, I had to take Krylov. Light heavyweights, anything can happen. And Ankalaev fought smart. He came out and he grappled in the 3rd round. So we lost half a unit there. And then took a gamble on Montana De La Rosa. Basically, unfortunately, the books have clocked on to the draw. Well, we used to get a point docked in round 1 and the books would open the draw. They wouldn't even adjust it. It would still be, I think it used to be plus 5,000, plus 6,000, plus 6,600 they had. I remember hitting them a few times, but they've really clocked on there. As soon as the line opened for the draw, it was plus 500. Probably still should have taken it. But the route I went here with Montana was actually taking her after round 2 at I think she was -150, -160. Actually tipped 2 units, which normally on live betting I stick to 1 unit bets. But here I went with 2 units because this is how I saw the fight. She won round 1, 10-8. So there's basically 2 rounds in the bag. Round 2 could have gone either way. So either she was 3-0 up or she was 2-1 up. Now, to lose the bet, because you've got to remember, moneyline bets are basically draw no bet in MMA. There's not a draw option. So if there is a draw, you just get avoided bet. So if she was 2-1 up, the only way she could lose the fight was either if she was stopped or if she lost around 10-8. So I took the gamble there that she could survive round 3 basically and not get completely trashed. And to be honest, it was a little bit borderline. Like, she managed to tie her up for a lot of the round to prevent it being a 10-8 round. But I mean, if she couldn't tie her up for stretches, if she couldn't have stopped her, you definitely could have seen a case that Silva might have won that round 10-8. So I can't remember. The scorecards were bizarre. Someone had it, I can't even remember now. Was it 28-27 for Silva? It was just some bizarre score that I need to actually look on MMA decisions and see how that person came to that scorecard. It was just bizarre. But it ended up being a draw, which was my kind of worst case scenario. So we ended up getting money back on the bet. I was hoping we was going to have nicked round 2, but I mean, it was all Silva up until the takedown. I think Montano had about a minute and a half to control, and she had Mount, she had some dominant positions. I think she had a submission attempt. So I just wondered if they might have swayed the round towards her. But ultimately, we got the draw. But that's why I went bigger there, and we just got a refund on the bet. So we took some slight profit on live betting and lost a unit and a half on pre-betting. But I like this card for betting. A lot of action on this card. Fingers crossed none of the fights fall victim to COVID or whatever other circumstance it might be. And it's just completely stacked. I mean, Dominick Cruz is on the prelims. That tells you everything. So we're going to start from the bottom. Some fights I'm just going to run through really quickly, guys, because I think there's about 15 fights. I'm not going to go in depth on every single fight. But we'll work our way through as we always do. If you want to sign up for membership, ProMMABetting.com. Memberships on the website, guys. We've got weekly through to yearly memberships. 95% of members are with us for the year. We offer pre-betting and a live betting service. All bets are tracked. Below this video, there's a link to all trackers. You can also find them on ProMMABetting.com. I post bet slips and stakes on Twitter. Twitter handle is @ProMMABetting. Give us a follow. I often throw out my opinion on fights during fight week as well. And we have a Discord community which was used just for live betting at first, but it's built into a little community. The guys like having a chat about the fights, etc. during fight week. The chat is paused during fights, so you can only see my tips with regards to live betting, and then I unpause it in between fights, so the guys can chat amongst themselves again, and then I'll pause it again at the start of another fight. So if you want to sign up for a membership, ProMMABetting.com. All memberships are on the website. But let's dive into the card. I'm using the UFC website this week for the fight order, so it should be pretty accurate. So first fight of the night, we have Mario Batista taking on Trevin Jones. I like Batista. Comes from the MMA lab. He's got that kind of MMA lab, gritty, tough, in-your-face kind of style. I bet him in his last fight. First round he probably dropped, but then he connected with a flying knee in round 2. But he had a really good fight with the Chinese chap or Korean chap in his, I think it was his UFC debut, the guy that gave PD Yana a really good fight. And he dealt with him really, really handily. I mean, he had a bit of a different style with Miles John. Miles John's more of a wrestler, more of an explosive guy. He didn't actually try and wrestle in that fight, but I wonder if that threw Batista off. Maybe he was anticipating the shot and he was just started a little bit slow, but obviously came to in the second round and got the knockout victory. So I like Batista. I think he's got a good style, in your face, bit of a savage. Trevin Jones, hard to find much tape on him outside of his UFC debut. I did watch his fight with Mehdi Bayadulev in ACA back in January 2019, so a couple of years ago now. He got a guillotine in the first round. But apart from that, it was just hard to find much tape on him. Valiev fight was, I mean, he looked completely outskilled in that fight. He showed tremendous toughness because he was nearly stopped in round 1. And he caught Valiev beginning of round 2. I mean, the fight could have been stopped in round 1. Some referees would have stopped that fight. Got overturned to a no contest. I assume he must have popped for something. I've not looked into what it was. But, I mean, tough guy. Definitely a tough guy. But when you look at his record, pretty patchy, 12-6, and a good win over Valiev, but kind of shot of a lifetime really. He was getting completely owned in that fight. So I've got to go with Batista here. I'm not surprised he's been bet down. He's about minus 240 now. I don't have a full read on Trevin Jones because of the lack of tape and because the Valiev fight was so one-sided. But I don't think Batista would be beat down like that against Valiev. He did get Valiev down, so Batista needs to watch out for the takedown. But I think Batista will be able to scramble back up to his feet, and I just think he'll outwork him on the feet. So I go with Batista here. The line, as I say, minus 240 now. Opened up at about minus 140. Got bet down quickly to minus 200 and more. So, I don't like paying too much juice on someone when I don't feel I've got a full handle on the opponent. I don't think we've seen Batista for a year either. He's only 27. So you've got to assume he's still an improving fighter. So, I've got to go with Batista here, the favourite, to win this fight against Trevin Jones. Next fight on the card, we have Uros Medic taking on eileon Cruz. So Cruz is moving up from featherweight to lightweight. Probably the right move for him. I mean, he's one of these really lanky guys. Probably better for him being at lightweight. And Medic's moving down. Well, he made his UFC or his Contender Series fight was at 155. He used to fight at 170. The guy looks massive. I saw a picture of him on Instagram standing with Dariush and Kelvin Gastelum, and he looked way bigger than both of them. And he trains at Kings now. He's been there for about 5 months. I think that is a great move for him. I think his style really fits in with the Kings kind of style. He seems like a guy that just likes to get in your face, throw bombs. I just think Kings is a perfect fit for him. Cruz is coming off his UFC debut loss, which was well over a year ago now. He lost to Spike Carlisle, got caught with a head kick and got stopped on the floor. Won on the Contender Series with a flying knee in a competitive fight. From what I can see from the tape, he's one of these guys that doesn't like being pressured, and I think Medic's just going to get in his face. There are question marks with Medic. He's only been at round one once. Is his cardio going to hold up? But I just think it's a bad style fight for Cruz. I just don't think he's going to like Medic getting in his face. Medic seems to have some serious power. I really like he's at Kings. He's a big guy. Like I say, there are question marks, and if it goes past round one, who knows how Medic's going to look. But I just think he's going to be too much for Cruz. And I'm going to go with Medic here. I'm not sold on Cruz's chin either. I didn't watch this fight for purposes of taping this fight, but I remember I did watch the Blackshear fight when he was going to be on Contender Series, and I'm sure he got hurt standing up against Blackshear, and then you've got the Spike Carlisle hurting him. I'm just not entirely convinced about his durability. I mean, maybe he'll be a bit more durable at lightweight. Maybe it was a big cut for him, and we know that can affect people's chins. But Medic seems like a guy that cracks. And I just think his style is all wrong for Cruz. And I'm interested to see how he looks after 5 months at Kings. So I'm going to go with Medic here. As I say, unknowns. Not seen him past round one. It's always a risk. Always a risk. We saw it with one of the brothers that was on Contender Series, a few months ago now. Never really been out of round one. Came out, had the guy in all sorts of trouble. He survived round one and then he was gassed out of his mind and lost the fight. So it's always a danger. I think that guy was quite a big favourite though. I mean, Medic is only sitting around minus 160 here. So, yeah, if you are betting him though, you've got to remember that he's not been past round one. That is the risk, but I do like him here. Next up, we've got a women's MMA fight, all Brazil affair. We've got Amanda Lemos taking on Souza. I broke my rule last week when I'd done the predictions with regards to low-level women's MMA. Even though I was very tempted, I didn't pick Davis. I ended up going with Mazzo, and I obviously should have picked Davis. Now, I've been saying this repeatedly on this podcast. When it's lower-level women's MMA, general rule of thumb, as I say, nothing's ever set in stone. I will pick the underdog because women's MMA is so unpredictable, and the fights are hard to line. So many underdogs come through in women's MMA, and we saw it again. But I'm gonna take a risk again, guys, and I'm gonna go with the favourite here. Even though I say you should go with the underdog, I just hate this fight for Souza. Like last week, I was in two minds at least. I did, I even put out a tweet. If you go back, I retweeted it after the fight, and I did say that the money coming in on Davis is correct, and this could be a banana skin for Mazzo. I don't know why I didn't pick her on the pod, to be completely honest. I mean, she was like plus 170. I don't know why I went with Mazzo. But here, I don't really have that doubt in my mind. I mean, it's women's MMA. Anything could happen. I would not be shocked if Souza won. But here, I just am more confident in my pick here, in picking the favourite in Amanda Lemos. I know Amanda pretty well. I bet her in a UFC debut. Not better, I bet against her in a UFC debut back in July 2017 when she took on Leslie Smith. It was a bit of a risky bet because I remember doing the regional tape and she's like a savage, but she used to gas, really slow down in fights. And Leslie Smith has that kind of really durable style, pressure type fighter. And I thought she would take over if she could survive the early onslaught and Lemos slowed down. Now, I don't like betting fighters hoping that the opponent's going to slow down. That's something that I've kind of learned and I kind of tend to avoid now. But I did bet Leslie Smith on that basis and it paid off because Lemos came out absolutely mad in round one and she slowed down and ended up getting stopped. We didn't see her for a while. She was out for over 2 years and she came back from fighting at 135, moved down to 115, beat Miranda Granger in the first round, just too powerful for her. And then I bet her as the underdog against Mizuki Inoue and pretty dominant win really. I mean, Inoue managed to clinch her on the fence for a fair bit, but just whenever they were separated, just the power that Lemos throws, I mean, real savage, real power. She dropped Inoue at one point as well. Just a powerhouse at 115. And Souza, I know Souza very well as well. I've watched a lot of her Invicta fights. I've followed her career all the way back to I remember the Hamasaki fight. I picked her against Hamasaki in Invicta and she won in round one. I've watched the Angela Hill fight a couple of times. She's small for 115. She barely cuts any weight. She should be at atomweight, but the atomweight division just isn't popular enough. It's not in the UFC. So there's going to be a big size and physical difference here. I faded her against Ashley Yoda. I still think Yoda should have got that decision. Now, it was a close fight, so I'm not going to scream robbery, but I thought Yoda won that fight. Fight before that, she really struggled with Brianna Van Buren's physicality. Now, Buren and Lemos, they're not similar in the sense of how they fight, but they're both physical girls, and she just couldn't deal with the physicality of Van Buren. She doesn't like being pushed back. I don't think she really likes being hit. And these are just all things Lemos is going to do. Now, whether Lemos comes out and pushes her back, I don't know. Against Inoue, she kind of was happy kind of backing up and then she'd explode with strikes, which she might be happy doing here, or she might decide she's going to come forward more against Souza. Souza's wins in the UFC, they've kind of flattered to deceive. I mean, Alex Chambers, she was given a gimme there. Sarah Frota, very close fight. Frota's big for the weight, hits hard, but she's got absolutely terrible takedown defence. And that was what allowed Souza to get the win there. But I'm not entirely sold on Souza's gas tank either. She slowed down in that Frota fight. She slowed down against Van Buren. And I don't know if she slowed down, but she definitely lost round 3 to Yoda. That was like the clearest round of the fight for me. And I just think Lemos is just a bad matchup for her. I just think she's going to be able to keep the fight standing. Souza's got a decent double where she'll shoot and then she'll wrap her leg around the back of your leg to trip you. But I just don't think it's really going to work. I just think the physicality difference is too much here. Now, I definitely wouldn't play Lemos. She's like minus 230 and whatnot now. I definitely wouldn't be playing that. It is women's MMA. But I think she opened the underdog on some books. I know someone that got plus 165. Shout out JT, which is absolutely nuts. But anything below minus 200, really, I think there's still a bit of value there. I just think this is a tough fight for Souza. And Lemos' physicality is going to be a problem because, as I said, I don't think she likes being hit, Souza. She doesn't like pressure. and she does slow down in fights. I just think it's a real tough fight for her. So I'm definitely picking Lemos here for me. But like I say, normally go with the underdog in women's MMA, lower level women's MMA. I should have last week, but I was unsure last week. This week I'm pretty adamant in Lemos here. So even if Sousa wins, I'm not gonna kind of come back and regret picking her, because it's just what the tape tells me is this is all Lemos' fight. Next we've got Sean Brady, Jake Matthews. I'll be completely honest, guys, I haven't jumped into tape on this one yet, just because my memory says that this is going to be a bit of a close fight, and I've got a bit of a bad history with Jake Matthews. I think I've only ever bet one of his fights, and I tried fading him against, I've forgotten his name, the Chinese guy, the fight that he won, and it was a career best performance from him. He looked really good in the fight, and since then I've just been, I can't really read Matthews, but I mean, he's looked flat the last 3 fights, let's be honest. They've given him easy fights, and he hasn't looked great. I mean, Brady's minus 192 at Bet online. I might actually have a look into it today, but he's still only 26, Jake Matthews. He's been in UFC for years, and he's still only a young kid. But I'm going to pick Brady here. If I change my mind after tape, I'll post it up on the captions below where I put the picks. But I'm going to go with Brady. I'm not sure if there's any value or anything. No, I'm going to do tape. Let me do tape on it today. I'll have a look because the line's dropped a bit. But he's definitely looked flat his last 3 fights for me. I mean, they gave him gimmies. He had the hairy guy who's fighting in Cage Warriors actually next month. I remember that fight Jake won the fight, but I just remember there wasn't much in it. He just squeaked it out. I remember he didn't look great against Thiago Sanchez when you consider the size difference and what stage Thiago Sanchez is at in his career. And he also got another win over someone else, and it was just a bit of a flat performance. Let me just bring up his record. Jake Matthews. That was Meek, wasn't it? Meek. I remember round 3 got a bit hairy. You couldn't. He's had fortunate those last 3 fights. Ackerman, Meek, Sanchez. Christ. Before that, he lost to Rocco Martin, good opponent there. Before that, though, Anzai. Lee, that was it. Lee was where I faded him and it backfired. Before that, he fought Bojan. I remember he squeaked out a decision that could have gone either way there. I mean, you look at his career, for a guy that's had as many fights as he's had in the UFC, he's been really fortunately, how many fights has he had? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14 fights in the UFC. And honestly, you can say he's fought. I mean, back then, James Vick, was decent. So I'll say Vick's a decent opponent. Kevin Lee, 2. Lee, 3, who he did beat. Rocco, 4. I mean, really, he's fought, out of 14 UFC fights, he's had 4 solid opponents. I mean, the guy has had... I'm going to look into this, actually, because that's some fortunate matchmaking. And I know he's young, but I'm just not seeing that leap that you'd expect from a young guy. He's had a lot of injuries and so forth. Brady's 13-0. He's got wins over Court McGee, Nureyev and Aguilera. So, I mean, he's had it a little bit easy as well. Court McGee's not the same Court McGee he was. Nureyev's got poor takedown defence. He's been cut. Aguilera's probably not UFC level. But he's very dangerous on top, Brady. I'm going to dig into that one today. I'm going to pick Brady. I'll let you know if I change my mind. I can't see myself picking Matthews, but I just don't know if there's any value on the current line. I just have visions of it being quite a competitive, close fight, but I'm going to dig into it today, actually. But the pick is Brady, and as I say, I'll post if I change my mind on that, but I doubt it. Next, light heavyweight fight. We've got Carlos Ulberg versus Kennedy Nchekwe. Probably saying that completely wrong, so I'm going to stick with Kennedy while we discuss this fight. Carlos, so Contender Series, hype. He's from Izzy's team, kickboxer. Done the job on Contender Series, got the quick knockout win. That guy knocked out was subsequently knocked out quickly in his next fight, so I'm not sure how much to read into that fight. Money's coming in on Ulberg. He's up, I think he's like minus 260 now, which might actually make him one of the biggest favourites on the card, if not the biggest. Let's have a quick look through. Well, obviously Amanda Nunes, but her aside, and Islam. I think he's like the third biggest favourite on the card. Minus 240 he's sitting at, so about the same as Izzy. So there's hype because he's got the City kickboxing, good performance on Contender Series. Kennedy has been out a long time. Let me just bring up Kennedy's record. I think it's about 18 months Kennedy's been out. Trains at Fortis, or at least did. I looked on his Instagram. I couldn't really find anything to confirm he's still there. I assume he is. He's only had 8 fights, 28 years of age. So, you know, they're both quite young in their MMA careers. Kennedy, though, has fought in the UFC a couple of times. So he got a win on Contender Series, quick win. He lost to Paul Craig in a fight that he was going to win the decision in, but he got caught in a triangle, Paul Craig special. And then he's coming off a win over Darko Stozic, which was about 18 months ago now. And I mean, Stozic had 2 points deducted in that fight. Now, without them point deductions, I scored that fight for Stozic. I think I gave him round 1. I gave round 2 to Kennedy, and I gave Stozic round 3. Now, the problem I have with Kennedy is he's got incredible length. Let me just bring up the stats on the guy, but he just doesn't use it. And what really concerns me with him is he throws no kicks. He's got the perfect frame to be spamming long kicks, and he doesn't throw any. It's quite bizarre. He's got an 83-inch reach, so he's going to have a 6-inch reach advantage here. He fights out of a southpaw stance, but he just doesn't throw kicks. He kind of likes to be pretty in your face, like in the pocket. It's really bizarre for his frame. Just doesn't utilise the God-given talent that he has in terms of his length. I mean, the guy should be spamming kicks, especially from that southpaw stance against orthodox fighters. Spamming the body kick, spamming the head kick, spamming the inside leg kick. The guy's so long, you know, it's going to be hard to counter him. But he just doesn't throw any kicks. It's just bizarre. They're both of a similar height. You know, I don't know whether he's got the length. He's got everything you'd want at light heavyweight, but I just got a feeling the guy's just not going to be able to put it together because I just don't like his style. It just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, unless he's made some drastic changes in the last 18 months, his style, and he could have, you know, he's only 28, but to go from throwing no kicks to suddenly blitzing kicks seems like a big ask. And against someone like Oldberg, who seems like a very good kickboxer, to suddenly come in with that tactic, I mean, it's got to be better than coming in trying to trade in the pocket. But you know, I have to go with Oldberg here. There's a lot of unknowns with Oldberg. I don't think there's any value on the line now. I think there was some value on the line maybe when he was sitting in the minus 100s, but now he's up at minus 240 or so. You know, there's too many unknowns. He's only had 3 MMA fights. I mean, he has been 3 rounds, so he's been past round 1. Won a decision a few years ago. It looks like he's improved a lot since that fight. I mean, that was getting on for 2.5 years ago. And he looked good against Bruno. But, I'm going to pick Oldberg here just because I just don't like Kennedy's style. And unless Oldberg really slows down, I just think it's going to be a difficult fight for Kennedy. Like I said, without the point deductions, he lost that fight to Stozic, in my opinion. I think the rounds are quite easy to score. I don't like how he just fights in close with his length. It just makes no sense to me. So I'm going to Oldberg. I think the line's too wide now. I think if you want to look for value on the fight, I think maybe the over 1.5. Because it was at 1.5 anyway. Let me see where it is now. I don't think that's a bad bet. Minus 165 because Kennedy's. Has he been stopped? I don't think he has. Let me quick look at his record. Like I said, the guy Oldberg knocked out Contender Series, not sure about his chin. He got submitted by Craig in the 3rd round. I think the over now, if you're looking to play that fight, I think there's some value on the over. Kennedy isn't a big puncher. Oldberg, we don't really know to be entirely sure. I can't say he's a big puncher just because he got that knockout on the Contender Series. Time will tell. He is new to MMA, really, only 3-0. But I think for me, I like the over 1.5 there based on the current lines. Oldberg, maybe if he was back in the minus 100s, early 100s, mid 100s, but not now, not with the unknowns. But the over to me does look quite enticing. But I'm going to pick Oldberg there. Next fight, last one on Fight Pass, we've got Jordan Espinosa taking on Tim Elliott. Oh, this is a hard fight to call. I've completely avoided this from a betting perspective. Jordan Espinosa, I regard as a flake. I did not like his last performance. I did not like what I was hearing from him on his stall in between rounds. It just screamed of someone that is a bit flaky to me. I kind of had suspicions of him being a little bit of a flake from watching some previous fights, and that just confirmed it for me. He's lost in round 1 to Schnell and Perez. Looked good against Mark De La Rosa, but Mark struggled in the UFC. And then Dvorak, he got his calf torn up in that fight as well, which is just, as I've already said, a complete nightmare as a bettor. Because I actually had some money on Espinosa against Dvorak, but I think his calf got chewed up pretty early, and I remember him sitting. I can't remember what he said on his stall in between rounds, but he was basically pretty much quitting on his stall, just like gone mentally. And I just hate that. I can't back that as a bettor. Tim Elliott, yeah, he's got his flaws, but at least the guy's gritty. He's not going to quit. He's going to keep coming. I'm just not sure where Tim's at. He's starting to look a little bit weathered. Every fight he's in is a bit of an ordeal. He scraped the win over Ryan Benoit. Got a unanimous decision, but it could have gone either way, that fight. He was doing well against Brandon Royval early on. He just gassed out in that fight. I think he did take it on short notice, though. Askarov, he got concussed really early, but he basically face planted. He had no idea how he lasted the distance. So tough fight. I just don't know where Elliott's at. And Espinosa has always looked like he's got solid takedown defence. And Tim Elliott has always relied on really getting takedowns. He's always had poor top control because he's submission over position. I just don't like the flakiness in Espinosa. I don't think there's any value on the line. It's Espinosa's a slight favourite. I'm going to pick Elliott just for the sake of him being the underdog. Espinosa's a flake, and I don't think I've picked a dog yet. So let's go with Elliott. But it's not a confident pick. I wouldn't be surprised if Espinosa kind of picks him apart on the feet. But Elliott's going to keep coming. He's going to pressure Espinosa. Espinosa doesn't like pressure, but maybe Espinosa will be able to hit a move. It's a small cage as well, so that's the benefit to Elliott. So I'll go with Tim Elliott, but I've got no action on the fight, guys, just to be clear, and I'll save it for live betting. Because I can see how Espinosa can win this fight, but I just can't back the guy, not after the kind of quit I've seen in him. It's just a no bet for me, pass. But I'll go with Elliott as he's the underdog. Kaya Kara-France next, so City Kickboxing again, taking on Rogério, Bontorin, Brazilian fighter who we haven't seen for a while now. I faded him in his last fight against Ray Borg. I thought that was a tough stylistic fight for him. Thought Ray Borg would be able to get his grappling going, and he subsequently did. Different stylistic fight here for Bontorin. He's got a striker. Kaya's going to want to keep this fight standing. I don't know what it is about Kaya, but there's something about him. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. I just don't entirely trust him. He's lost to Royval and Marino in the UFC, which there's no shame in. Both very good fighters. He started well against Marino, won the first round, but Marino's pace and output just ended up being too much for him. And he's got wins over Mark De La Rosa, Tyson Nam, and Piper, which definitely could have gone either way. I remember I bet him in his debut against Elias Garcia. He dominated that fight. There was a couple of hairy moments, but he pretty much dominated the fight. I bet him against Piper. I was not convinced he deserved that decision, I've got to be honest. He did get the split. It was close, but it definitely helped that fight was in Australia, I think. Got the win over De La Rosa. I think I passed on that one. I don't think I've bet him since, in fact. Got the win over De La Rosa, Marino Royval, Tyson Nam. So he's going to want to keep the standing here against Bontorin. Bontorin is... Kai's definitely the more technical striker. Bontorin is someone that he's going to try and land bombs. He got a good win over Biblatov in his UFC debut. It was Biblatov kind of made some errors in that fight that gave the win to Bontorin. It was a very close fight. Could have gone either way. He basically won it in the last minute of round 3 when he managed to get on Biblatov's back. But he was outstruck in the fight. He just managed to get his grappling going in pockets. He got a win over Piper because of a cut. Took Piper down a few times with big slams, but it's a hard fight to call. Leading up to the cut, it was kind of back and forth. And then the Ray Borg fight, he just got grappled in it, basically. So, I mean, on paper, you can see that it looks a good fight for Kai. It does. But I don't know. I just don't. There's something about him. I don't entirely trust him. And I can't give you good reasoning here, but except for go and watch the Bibulatov fight, and I think Bontorin might be able to do something similar here, because Bibulatov's a very good fighter. That was it just didn't work out for him in the UFC, but that was a solid win for him, and we've not seen him for a year. Maybe there's some improvements made. He's a big, strong guy for the weight. I'm going to go with Bontorin. Like I say, I can't give great justification for this pick. It's just a gut feeling with Kai. I just don't feel I've got a great read on him. I think he gets a little bit overvalued by the books as well. I don't know whether it's a city kickboxing thing. But I do see why you'd pick Kai here stylistically. But like I said, I think Bontorin can just kind of make this a bit like the Bibulatov fight and nick a decision here. So I'm going to go with Bontorin. I've got no money on this fight. I haven't bet it because, like I say, I'm struggling to justify the pick because on paper it does look a good fight for Kai. But I don't know. I just can't put my finger on it with Kai, but I just don't really want to put my money on him here, especially as a favourite, like -135, -140. So I'm going to pick second dog of the night. I'm going to go with Bontorin here. Next fight on the card, we have Benavidez taking on Askarov. Good fight. Benavidez is getting at the end of his career. The two fights with Figueiredo they were life-changing beatdowns. I mean, the rematch. After the first fight, he was complaining about concussion issues. That's always a major red flag. Then literally the rematch, he got dropped 3 times and then he got choked unconscious. It was pretty brutal to watch. And I know Askarov isn't Figueiredo. He's not got that kind of power, but they're flyweight. So, the whole KO thing is something that you maybe don't have to take into consideration as much. But, I mean, Askar can still crack. He basically knocked out Tim Elliott. Tim Elliott face planted. I don't know how he came round and survived. I mean, Elliott said after what happened, he doesn't remember the rest of the fight. So he obviously had a bad concussion. I mean, he landed some plum shots on Pantoja. Pantoja's got a very solid chin, but he landed some solid shots on Pantoja. But this does seem like the kind of fight where Benavidez gets the kind of fight he wants in terms of a scramble heavy fight. And, it's always difficult to win a scramble fest against Benavidez. It's where he excels. He's, made a title challenging career out of it. But I'm picking Askarov here just because I just don't think, Benavidez was even hurt badly against Sergio Pettis. I mean, Sergio, very good technical striker, but he doesn't have any power, and he had Benavidez hurt. I just worry about that chin. But it is flyweight, and, can I see Askarov knocking him out? Not really, but he's definitely taken career-changing damage. He's nearly 37. He's a flyweight. The age factor does play more of a role in the lighter weight classes because the first thing to go as you age is your speed and your reflexes, and that's what you rely on, especially someone like Benavidez with his scrambling and so forth. And I mean, even if you go and watch the Dustin Ortiz rematch, I bet Benavidez pre-fight, and I remember I balled out on live bet on that fight because he lost round 2. Like, Dustin was actually, he lost round 3. Ortiz, he got grappled in round 3, admittedly. Benavidez came back, but he did get out scrambled in round 2 by Ortiz. There's just some signs there that he's slowing down a bit for me. I mean, I know he went on a winning run after that. He got the win over Formiga. He beat Perez in. That was a bizarre fight. I don't know if that was a head clash or what that led to Perez's downfall in that fight. It was just a weird fight. But I just can't get the Figueiredo beatdowns out of my head. They were just so bad. So I'm going to go Askarov here. It's definitely not confident because I can fully see the justification for picking Benavidez here because it's Askarov is known for his wrestling and his scrambling, and it seems like it could be that type of fight here because Askarov does kind of pursue the takedowns quite a lot, so he might play into Benavidez' hands. But I just can't pick the old fading fighter with a cracked chin who probably should retire. And I mean, if he loses here, I'd be surprised if he doesn't retire. So we know what it's like in MMA. It's not many fighters go out on a win, go out in their glory days. I've just got to go with Askarov. So I'm picking Askarov. It isn't confident. What I don't mind here, and I'm not really a hedger. It's not my style, but Askarov money line is about minus 120, minus 125, and you can get Benavidez decision it was at plus 280. I haven't looked for a few days, but I think that's a decent hedge. Obviously, if that's how you play fights and you like hedging, I'm always wary of it because if I bet Askarov money line, bet Benavidez decision, then Benavidez probably wins by submission, then I lose both my bets. But if you're into your hedging and whatnot, that does seem like quite a solid way to play the fight. But I'm going to pick Askarov here. It is a bit of a fade on Joe B. Maybe I'll be wrong, but it's just in my gut. I'm going with my gut here. Next, we got Song Yadong taking on Kyler Phillips. A lot of hype on Kyler Phillips. Trains out of the MMA lab. And, I can see why. There is a lot to like about the kid. We've seen him on the Contender Series. He fought against the Canadian. His name will come to me in a minute. Lost that fight, but it was like 3 years ago. Lost the decision there. I thought he lost both rounds. He really struggled with a calf kick in that fight. Brad Catone. He was really struggling with a calf kick in that fight, and Catone started to get his grappling going as well. It was a really solid performance from Brad Catone, that fight. 3 years later, though, he was only like 22, I think. He's 25 now, so 22 to 25 is such a good time for you to make improvements as a fighter, and it seems to be something that he's done. I went and watched the fight with Brad Catone. He was on Contender Series as well before he fought Brad Catone. He got a quick win on Contender Series. Then he went on the Ultimate Fighter, lost to Brad Catone. Then I went and watched his fight with Victor Henry, which was after the Catone fight, about 6 months after, about 2.5 years ago now. Lost a split decision. I mean, I don't know what his training circumstances were back then, but he gassed really badly in that fight. From like the second round, he was really, really gassed. Lost there. He came back to LFA, got a quick win. Then made his UFC debut against Gabriel Silva. Solid performance. Gabriel Silva is a good fighter. He's actually just been cut from the UFC. But Silva is a gasser, and he slowed down in that fight and allowed Phillips to basically take over. Striking wise, he looks good on the feet. He does load up a bit though. He likes to step in to land the right hand. He's definitely not as technical as someone like Song or as fast. And he had a bit of a gimme fight with Cameron Else. Sorry to say, but I was big on the under 1.5 there. That's how lowly I thought of Cameron Else, because I don't love betting under 1.5s, especially in the bantamweight division. But I just, you just knew that was a mismatch. So for me, the jury's still out. I still don't feel like I've got a full read on him. As I say, Gabriel Silva does slow down in fights, and that's what happened there. Did that mask some potential cardio issues for Silva? I'm going for Phillips. Sorry, I'm going back to the Henry fight here. But I don't know what his training circumstances were then, because a lot of the angle I see for people picking Phillips here is Song slows down. But, how's Phillips going to look in a fight where he's pushed for all 3 rounds? We haven't really seen it. All we've seen is the Henry fight. So I'm interested to see if his cardio holds up here. I think that's a valid question mark there. Yadong Song, very explosive, very fast, trains out of Team Alpha Male, great athlete. Apparently only 23 years of age. He's great in the UFC. The knock on him is that he does slow down a little bit. We saw it against... we did see it a bit against Vince Morales. Towards the end of the 3rd round, there was a bit of a grappling exchange, and it seemed to tire Song out. Cody Stamen, he got the draw there. I've got no problem with that draw. I thought Song won the first. They were close rounds, but I thought Song nicked the first 2 rounds. The point deduction therefore made it a draw, but he definitely did slow down. Cody's scrambling and wrestling got to him in the end, and He definitely slowed down in that fight. And then he's coming off a win over Marlon Vera, which, sorry, that's a solid win for a 23-year-old. Marlon Vera, he's got some flaws, Marlon Vera, but he's a greatly improved fighter, and he pushes an insane pace, and he's got an iron chin. We know in the UFC and MMA in general how far people that push an insane pace and have grit and durability go. It counts for so much. And I thought that was a great litmus test for Song to pass. I know some people have said the decisions, but again, I don't agree with that. It's like the Cody fight I can understand if you argue, because rounds 1 and 2 were very, very close. But I'm not saying Song run away with round 1 and 2 against Vera, but for me, he clearly won round 1 and 2. I don't get the... I remember even on live bet, I'm sure Song was a massive favourite after round 2, and I definitely gave him round 1 and 2. And round 3, his cardio looked better in that third round. He was outstriking Vera in round 3. He just ended up getting taken down a couple of times. But like I say, the pace and pressure that Vera puts on, that's a great litmus test for your cardio. And I like what I saw from Song there. He's been out for, what we're getting on for, like 9 months or so. Young kid, could be more improvements here. So, I bit on Song. When the line went down to minus 130, I had to pull the trigger. Now, I haven't gone massive just because I don't have a solid read on Phillips. I don't want to underestimate him by overexposing myself here. But Song, there's a lot to like with Song's speed, power, really good striking, strong guy, physical. I think personally Phillips needs takedowns here to win this fight. I did not see him beating Song on the feet. So I had to pull the trigger at minus 130. And like I say, for me, there's, okay, people want to question Song's cardio. Well, Phillips, 2.5 years ago. But like I say, that might have been because he wasn't training properly. I don't know. Things might be different for him now. But, I haven't seen him pushed for 3 rounds since that fight. And that fight, he gassed badly. In that fight, he fought a solid fighter. And I don't think the guy's ever been stopped. So a bit of a Marlon Vera test in that respect. It's just, a gritty guy that's going to stay with you all the way, going to test you for the duration of the fight. And, Phillips failed that test. So let's see what happens here. But I had to take Song when he was minus 130. But this will tell us more about Phillips, because there are unknowns. It's hard to really gauge Phillips, but he does look like a promising talent. I'm definitely not dismissing him in this fight, but I had to pull the trigger on Song personally when he dropped to like minus 130. Next fight on the card, guys, we've got, I think this is the last fight before the main card. So Dominick, Cruz, Casey, Kenney. It's just hard to know where Cruz is at the end of the day. He's had like one fight in the last, 4.5 years against... Henry Cejudo. It's not an easy fight to come back against. He was losing the fight, but he was competitive. He wasn't getting destroyed. He lost round 1 clearly, struggled with the low kicks. Round 2, he did come into the fight more. I still had him losing round 2 up until when he was caught with the knee, but he was more competitive. It's a real tough one. It's just hard to know where he's at. Casey Kenney is definitely a step down. Casey definitely looks like he's improved. The Nathaniel Wood fight, I think, was a good indicator to see where he's at. And, he passed that test. Very close fight, very competitive fight. But Casey does slow down. It's indicative in pretty much his UFC run. You saw him, he really slowed down against Wood. Wood could have made some slight adjustments and nicked that fight. He just, very close fight. So this is a hard fight to read because I just don't know where Cruz is at. But my personal opinion on the fight is Cruz decision. I took it when it was at plus 190. Cruz has never been a finisher. Casey Kenney is very durable. I don't think it's far different to money line. Now, I always say if you're going to play an underdog, just take the money line as opposed to a decision, or at least split it. But I've just gone with the decision here. It's not a big bet, but I've just gone with decision here, because I just don't see a finish from Dominick Cruz. If it bites me, then there's a reminder of why I preach split money line and decision. But I haven't gone big. I'm just not confident. I just don't know where Dominick's at. But plus 190, I feel that's nearly as good as money line against Casey Kenney. It's a step down in competition for Cruz. We'll find out where he's at. And big thing for me here is Kenney does slow down. Slows down in a lot of his fights. So if we're 1-1 going into round 3, because, if Kenney wins round 1, that's probably more likely he's going to come out throwing a lot of volume. If Cruz can nick round 2, then round 3, if we're going into round 3, it's a 50-50 fight if it's 1-1. And I'll probably give the slight edge to Cruz because I definitely think he's got the cardio advantage. I don't think, Kenney's not going to be able to get his wrestling going. I'd be very surprised. He might hit a takedown, but Cruz will be straight up. He managed to use that against Nathaniel Wood, probably helped him nick the 3rd round. I don't think it's going to happen here. I think it's going to play out on the feet. So let's see. Kenney's going to, he fights out that southpaw stance. He's going to be spamming kicks, etc. Let's see how it works against someone with Cruz's movement. And let's see what Cruz has got left. So I'm going to pick Cruz. He might look old, he might look short. It's a risky one. I definitely, as I say, I've gone small on the decision. I think if you're betting Kenney as a favourite, you are relying on Cruz being shot. And there's a good chance he's been injury plagued. He's 36, but I thought he looked alright against Cejudo. I don't think he looked terrible. Let's see what he's got left. Out of the, in terms of betting the old guard here, Joe B or Dominick Cruz, I would personally prefer to play Dominick Cruz. I've definitely got more question marks regarding Joseph Benavidez in terms of the damage he's taken. Whereas Dominick Cruz, he's had a lot of injuries, but the damage-wise, it's not too bad for someone like Cruz. He had a long time out as well of being punched in the face. So I'll go with Cruz by decision here. So onto the main card. Next we've got Thiago Santos, Aleksandar Rakić. I haven't seen anyone pick Santos, I don't think. Everyone that I speak to that is betting this fight is on Rakić. Everyone is assuming he's going to get takedowns and win the fight, which, Rakić has showed he has got that in his armoury. He used it against the boxer, I can't remember his name, the boxer he beat, I think it was his UFC debut, took him down. He beat him up on the feet, but he mixed in the takedowns, and then he done it against Anthony Smith as well. Did try and use takedowns against Volkan, but he just couldn't get Volkan down. Takedown defence was too good. And we do know it's a bit of a liability for Santos, his takedown defence. We saw it against Glover. You even go back and watch his fight with Eric Anders. He was struggling a bit with the takedowns of Anders there. He had some severe injuries coming off the John Jones fight. He had to have major surgeries on both legs, but he looked fine against Glover to me, standing anyway. Any time that fight was standing, Glover was in trouble. So I don't think those injuries have affected Santos. He looks like he's come back the same fighter to me. He's just as explosive, just as dangerous on the feet. So you've got to be very careful with him standing. But I'm pretty sure Rakić will try and implement the Anthony Smith game plan here. And it probably works. Santos' takedown defence just isn't great. But on the feet, it's dangerous. So I'll go with Rakić, but I haven't bet the fight personally. I don't really like the thought of betting him to win by, effectively like kind of lay and pray potentially over 3 rounds against Santos. He's so dangerous on the feet, Santos. I don't think Rakić is necessarily overmatched on the feet, but Santos is definitely more dangerous than Rakić standing. And it's just small cage. It's just, if it goes 3 rounds, each round's going to start on the feet. It's just like gulp every time the bell goes to start a new round with Santos on the feet. But I think Rakić will fight smart here and mixing the takedowns, and I just don't think Santos historically has got the takedown defence to... I even remember like Jordan Meerschaert taking him down. I don't think Meerschaert could keep him down. He was just too explosive for Meerschaert, but he can definitely be taken down, Santos. That's the concern. I actually did see, I think decision for Rakić was sitting at like plus 250 last time I looked. Let me have a quick look. And that did catch my eye. Rakić by decision. It's been bet down a little bit, plus 230 now. I don't think that's a bad play. If it's a fight where you're not overly sure, or you don't want to pay the minus 150, minus 160 on Rakić decision, I don't think that's a bad play at all. I'd be surprised if he stopped Santos. And we've seen, he's content to kind of ride fights out on the floor, so I don't think that's a bad play. And Santos, I mean, I get why someone would play Santos, but I don't know anyone that is. He is dangerous on the feet, but it's just that takedown defence. But it's like heavyweight. Now, any time the fight's on the feet, it's danger time for Rakic. But I'll pick Rakic here. I haven't bet the fight, but if I was going to bet anything, it would be Rakic decision, or I'd probably take the over. If I liked Rakic, I'd probably take the over 1.5 instead. It's a similar price to money line, and I don't see Rakic finishing the fight, especially early. So if you like Rakic, maybe that would be the better play over 1.5, or maybe even split that with a Rakic money line. I haven't bet it personally though. I think I don't know. I'll probably avoid it. I might have to think about it actually. The over 1.5 there. Next we've got Dober taking on Islam Makhachev. So this is striker versus grappler, old school type fight here. Islam's definitely going to want to try and get the fight to the floor as quickly as possible. We haven't seen him for, I think it's about 18 months. 18-1. Yeah, it's about 18 months since we last saw him against Davey Hamos. Drew Dober definitely has made a leap. Definitely improved as a fighter. He looks absolutely terrifying on the feet these days. The pressure he puts on you. We saw it against Marco Hayes. We saw it against Nasrat. We saw it against Hernandez. Just pushes an insane pace. Has struggled with the wrestling in the past. Lost to Dariush because of that. Had a good first round, but ended up getting put on the mat. And not getting caught in an armbar. It looked like he was going to get out, but he just ended up tapping. And he struggled with the grappling of Mercier as well. So these are concerns. He's not fought. If you look at his UFC career, especially over the last 5 years anyway, even if you look at his whole career, I think. He's pretty much fought strikers, really. The only time he's fought grapplers, he's lost Mercier and Dariush. So there's obviously a concern there. Makhachev, solid wrestling, good on top. Let me just go to his record. He's 18-1. He got knocked out by, I think it was Martins that knocked him out. Maybe a bit of a controversial stoppage, but long time ago now. We're talking over 5 years ago. He's just not been overly active. He beat Chris Wade, Nick Lentz, so two good wrestlers there. Thiago he put away in the first round. Cajun Johnson, easy armbar. Arman, another good wrestler. Yeah, the wrestling was just too much against Arman, but it was a very competitive fight. And then Davey Hamos, pretty comfortable win for him there on the feet. I think he dropped Davey as well. Look, I'm not playing minus 350. I'm not parlaying it. I'm not doing any of that. It just does seem a tough fight for Dober when you look at where Dober's struggled historically. Has he improved in that department? The Dariush fight was a couple of years ago now. So, he's clearly improved on the feet. He's always been a good striker, but he's clearly made an improvement there. But how far is the grappling, takedown defence and whatnot come? He did defend the takedowns against Dariush in round one, but ultimately ended up on the bottom. And I just think Makhachev is just going to end up out wrestling him across 3 rounds. So I've got to go Makhachev. I don't think there's any value on the money line. I wouldn't play it. Can't blame you if you're playing Dober in some way. Just looking at the over 2.5 is minus 160, but Makhachev isn't really a finisher, but Dober has been, both times he's fought grapplers, he did get submitted. So, who's he? Arman and Davey Hamos, you're not going to sub Arman. Difficult to sub, very good wrestling and scrambling. Nick Lentz and Chris Wade both survived on the mat with him. But, if you look at, in terms of grappling, Dober's probably the worst grappler he's faced outside of Leo Kuntz, who he submitted, and Cajun Johnson, who he submitted. So, yeah, I'm avoiding that fight. I wouldn't be surprised if he submitted him or won a decision. But it'd be great if he can't get the takedowns here, because Dober is a nightmare on the feet. So I'm just going to enjoy that one. Just sit back and enjoy it. But I'm going to pick Makhachev, but I'm definitely not betting. There's no value on the line in my opinion. So next, first of 3 title fights in a row, Bantamweight title fight. Aljamain Sterling taking on the champ Petr Yan. Very tough fight to call. I agree with the line, having it at a pick'em. Aljamain was at plus 120 at one point, but money's come in. The big question mark here is how Aljamain's going to look over 5 rounds. We haven't seen him fight over 5 rounds. I think he did go 5 rounds once outside the UFC, but that was a long time ago. We have seen him slow down a little bit. He slowed down in the fight with, let me bring up his record, Brian Caraway, but it's a very grappling heavy fight. Petr Yan's not going to be coming out and trying to take Aljamain down. And he did look like he did slow a bit against Pedro. He definitely did slow a bit, but he still won all 3 rounds for me. So I just don't know whether the gassing angle is overplayed or not. I guess we will find out, because I think this fight's going to go long. It's definitely a question mark, though. I definitely have to give Yan the cardio advantage. Yan just doesn't gas. He's going to be able to go hard for 5 rounds. That is the unknown here. If this was over 3 rounds, I probably would have bet Aljamain when he was up at plus 120, but the 5-round factor just has me concerned. Aljamain striking has always been underrated. I bet him against Jimmy Rivera just because he's very good at disrupting rhythm. Aljamain, he will start throwing high volume of strikes, then issue a takedown. His takedowns aren't the greatest, but he'll tie you up against the fence, and then it just makes people uncomfortable on the feet because they just don't know when a shot's coming. And that's why I bet him against Jimmy, and he just threw Jimmy completely off of his game plan. I think he beat Rafael Assunção in the first fight as well. I don't think he lost that fight. I thought he won that fight. He lost a split decision. I don't agree with that decision. I thought he outstruck Rafael. So I even think back, 4 years ago, he was showing solid striking, but his striking's definitely improved. Who has Aljamain fought that is closest to Petr Yan? It has to be Pedro Nunes. Now, I think Petr Yan is better than Pedro, but in terms of similar kind of styles, it is Pedro. And he put in a really good performance there. What he does, Aljamain, he's got great length, and he will spam you with a high volume of kicks, punches. He'll just keep firing them. And that's my concern as well with it being 5 rounds, is he does fight at such a high pace to implement his style. How's he going to look going into the rounds 4 and 5? Because I have to edge the fight to Yan in rounds 4 and 5, and Aljamain might need the first 3 here, potentially, but it is a bit of an unknown. The last time he went 5 rounds was, I'm sure he went 5 on the regionals, 2011. So you're talking, we're talking nearly 10 years ago, and I wonder how that fight looked. Did he dominate the fight for 5 rounds? It's very different in a fight you're dominating. You can go hard for 5 rounds if you're dominating. It's when you're going to have to overcome adversity, and I'd be very shocked if he just shuts down Yan for 5 rounds. I think there's going to be some adversity, best case scenario for Aljamain here, even if he gets the win. So that's the unknown, is just how he's going to look. But he's going to look for the grappling, I would have thought. From what we've seen from Yan, he's got very solid takedown defence. He's got very good scrambles. He's definitely got to be careful of giving his back up against Aljamain. We've seen how dangerous he is when he gets on your back. Watch the Cody Stamann fight. Watch the Corey Sandhagen fight. Very dangerous guy when he gets on your back. But can he get Yan down? I don't know. It's going to be very interesting. We just haven't really seen Yan's takedown defence tested. You'd have to go back to the ACB fight where he won the 5-round decision to really see it tested, and it looks solid. He looks very explosive in scrambles. It's a great fight. It really is a great fight. I've avoided it. I think it's going to go long. I do think it's going to go long. I like the over 3.5 in this fight. It's been bet up a bit now. The line was better than that, but I do think it goes long, and I think it probably goes to a decision more often than not. I just don't really see this fight finishing very often. Aljamain's threat will be if he can get on your back. Petr Yan, more than likely, if Aljamain really tires and he starts to turn the heat up. Petr Yan is the better striker, but he can fight out of both stances. He's got more power, but he's got to get inside that reach, and it's going to be difficult to begin with. And we have seen, Yan does drop rounds. Have seen him drop rounds. He's not infallible. The Aldo fight, you could argue Aldo was 2-1 up going into round 4. Aldo slowed down in that fight. Jimmy Rivera, I thought outside of the knockdowns, he lost that fight outside of the knockdowns to me. I think Jimmy boxed him up. He can start off slowly. You go and watch the first round with Uriah Faber, and there's not a lot going on in that first round. It's quite a slow start from Petr Yan. So I can see a good start for Aljo here. It's just whether he can maintain it. It's such a hard fight to call, and it's at a pick 'em now. There's no value, in my opinion, on the money line. I'm going to pick, based on it being a pick 'em line, I'll go with Petr Yan. If Aljo was still my plus 120, I'd pick Aljo here. But I just think at pick 'em, I don't think there's any value. But just the unknown, I just worry about Aljo late here. That is my concern. But I do think he starts well. I think if you like Yan, you'll probably get a good live bet line on him after maybe round 1. We'll see what happens, but it's a tough fight to call. But I'm going to go with Yan to retain his title in a very close fight, very competitive. I think it goes 5 rounds. Really looking forward to it. It's probably the fight I'm looking forward to most on the card. Next fight we have Amanda Nunes taking on Megan Anderson. So featherweight title. Amanda against Megan Anderson. Look, the money line's unplayable here. I think Amanda Nunes will approach this fight like she did the Aljamain fight. I think she's going to look for takedowns. Megan Anderson, I know she gets a bit of stick, but she's dangerous on the feet, man. I mean, she one-punched Dumont. Her toe stabbed Kat Zingano in the eye. And Holly Holm wanted no part of her on the feet. It's just, has her takedown defence improved since the Holly Holm fight? Because Holly was getting takedowns relatively easy, and when she did get her down, she was dominating. It's not a great look for Megan. I mean, 2.5 years ago, what improvements has she made on the floor? I know she got the triangle win over, I can't remember the girl's name, but that isn't Amanda Nunes. And Amanda showed against GDR she's got very good takedowns. She's got good double legs. Megan's not bad on the fence defending. She frames pretty well, and I don't think she will lose to Amanda like she did Felicia Spencer, where Felicia kind of got a real waist log, put her down on her hands and knees and then jumped on her back. I don't think that's Amanda's kind of style, but Amanda did show against GDR she's got decent shots in open space. And the problem with Megan is she's so long. I just think it's difficult for her to ever really have solid takedown defence because she's got so much length in her leg. It's just tough to get those legs out of the way. It's just a matter of dynamics. Long legs, it's harder to stuff a takedown because you've got more leg to move out of the way. There's more leg to grab. So I just can't ever see her having great takedown defence. But she's definitely dangerous on the feet. There's no doubt about that. And if you said to me this fight stays standing for as long as it lasts, I would definitely bet Megan here. It'd definitely be worth a shot because she's got power for a woman. But I think Amanda's going to grapple. And I did consider the over 1.5. That was the only bet I was really considering on this fight. And then I just watched GDR against Amanda, and she had her in big trouble in round 1 on the floor with a ground and pound, threatened with a submission. Well, it just kind of put me off. Now it's women's MMA over 1.5. I mean, it's definitely a profitable bet, but I just think from what we've seen from Megan on the mat, I mean, I just worry that it's going to be a case of like Amanda kind of moves to full mount. That kind of fight maybe can cinch up a head and arm or just rains down shots. just made me nervous about betting the over. But I mean, I think if there is any play on this fight, if you're one of those that wants to play every fight, probably is the over. I haven't looked at what the price is lately. It was last time I saw -125, but I don't know. I mean, if you're feeling incredibly brave, a little sprinkle on Megan KO maybe. You never know. She has got good power for a woman. Who knows? Amanda could walk onto something. You never know. But yeah, I'll have to go with Amanda retaining her title. But the guys, just don't put her in parlays. There is 0 point. It's not worth it. She's like -1400. Don't do it. And I promise you, if however long the fight's standing, you will be worried. Megan's got good stand up. I think the money line's a bit disrespectful, to be completely honest. I mean, I think Amanda was like -400 or so against GDR, and this is exactly the same dynamic. Megan's dangerous on the feet. On the mat is the big advantage to Nunes. I think it's too wide for a fight that if it plays out on the feet, for Amanda to be that wide, I think she's got to be able to dominate standing and on the ground. And on standing up, I think this is a close fight standing. So I'm not going to pick Megan because I think Amanda will fight smart, just take her down. But I would not be shocked if Amanda doesn't fight smart and this ends up playing out on the feet for periods. It would not shock me if Megan landed something and put her away. And you do have Amanda's gas tank as well. It's a bit of a question mark. But I'll go with Amanda to win the fight, but there's no value. The value lies in whether you like the over, in my opinion, and maybe even, as I say, a little sprinkle on Megan in a KO. But I think Amanda fights smart and gets takedowns and wins the fight, probably with a £1 stoppage. Maybe even look at Amanda submission prop, maybe. What is it? Let's have a quick look. What's Amanda sub paying? Oh god, it's crap. Jeez. +175. I was expecting it to be way better than that. No, I think if you're going to look at anything, look at the over women's MMA. But I haven't played it. Like I said, the GDR fight, just some refs might have even stepped in when she was raining down the shot. So I'll pass. So pick is Amanda though, but no, there's no value on it, guys. Amanda, Jan Blachowicz taking on Israel Adesanya. So Adesanya going for champ status here. Again, much like what fight is it? The Rakic fight, where everyone I know that's betting the fight is on Rakic. I think everyone I've spoken to here is on Adesanya. For me, nope, I'm not going to play Adesanya here. I don't want to pay the juice. I will be, it's probably personal preference, but for me, I know I will be sweating this fight if it goes 25 minutes for 25 minutes, because it just takes one shot from Jan. Now, is going to be the better striker? He's probably going to be, if he does lose the fight, he'll be winning until he loses, most likely. But I just know that the reason that I don't like the bet is because I have struggled seeing Adesanya finishing Jan. I think it goes to 25. I think Izzy more than likely wins by decision, and I just don't want to sweat that at -225 you can get. I just don't want to sweat that for 25 minutes, worrying about Jan landing a bomb, because he does crack. Izzy can be hit. I know Kelvin Gastelum is like a welterweight fighting at middleweight. He's a lot quicker than Jan. But, the fight was 2-2 going into round 5. The Yoel Romero fight was very close. He was very tentative in that fight. I know Yoel as well is very quick, very explosive. It's not really Jan, so maybe that's why Izzy was tentative. But, what I'm trying to say is he's not completely infallible. Yes, he's exceptional striker. But at -225 in a 5-round title fight, I'd to pay that juice. I'd like to be greatly confident that he can win by KO or decision here. And don't get me wrong, Jan could walk onto something. Izzy's not the most powerful striker in the world, but what he lacks in power, he makes up for with his timing, and that sometimes cancels out not having the raw power. And we did see Yan get knocked out by Thiago by running onto a counter. But, you know, Thiago Santos hits harder than Izzy, even though he's not as skilled technically. There's definitely a power differential between the two. And it's the only time Yan's been knocked out. I know he got stopped between rounds. I'm not sure what happened there years ago. But he's always shown to have a solid chin. Is he going to try and grapple here? The weight difference is probably going to be significant. You can see Yan's going to look a lot thicker. It's going to make the Grishin Jacoby size difference look very insignificant. He's going to look way thicker in there. Izzy's talking about coming in at 193 pounds or so. And I know he barely cuts weight for middleweight, so I think that's perfectly realistic. That's the weight he's going to come in at. Yan's probably going to walk in there on the night around, I don't know, 225, 230. So he's probably going to have a 30 to 40 pound weight advantage. Is he going to try and lean on Izzy, make it a bit like the Jacare fight, try and wear him out? I just don't think Izzy's going to gas, even if he leans on him. Just don't see it. I think Izzy is just so relaxed in there. He's had so many kickboxing matches. He's had 20 MMA fights now. He's just the type of guy, you can just see how relaxed he is with fighting. It doesn't bother him. He's not. I just don't see him gassing. I just think he's so chilled in there, even with a big man leaning on him. I don't see it slowing him down. So I don't really think that's going to work unless Yan can get takedowns and get time on top. You know, that would be very interesting, but not even sure. If Yan wins this fight, I see him catching Izzy with a bomb, which, you know, in a small cage, 20, and if it goes 25, which I think it does, it's not unrealistic. So the only bet I've got on this fight so far is I did take Izzy unanimous decision at plus 325. As I already said, I think Izzy, if he wins, it's probably by decision. And I do think that it's probably the kind of fight that he's winning pretty comfortably with the speed advantage. You know, if he does lose, he's winning until he loses. That type of fight where he just gets caught. But that wouldn't shock me. That's why I've just avoided doubling him up. I know people are putting Izzy in doubles and so forth, and, you know, even playing him straight. It's just, I just wouldn't feel comfortable because I think it goes to 25. I don't want to sweat every time Yan throws a shot. And Izzy might make him look silly. He might make me look silly for passing because, it wouldn't shock me if he just goes in and wins a comfortable 50-45. But Yan's got power, man. You know, and has he been hit by that kind of power? I don't know. How's he going to react if he's caught from a Yan power shot? Who knows? We have seen him hurt. You know, he was hurt against Kelvin. So, you know, he can be hurt. It's interesting, but I'm going to go with Izzy, but like I say, I don't think there's any value on the money line. If I was going to bet this fight, I said I've got some Izzy unanimous decision, but if I had to bet the fight in terms of a money line, I would probably put a little bit on Yan, to be honest. Or even just take Yan inside the distance. I wouldn't take Yan KO, or if you're going to play inside the distance KO, I'd split Yan KO with Yan inside the distance. He has locked in a couple of submissions. We saw him take down Krylov and sub him, and we saw him hit that standing rear naked on Devin Clark. You know, club and sub's always in play. He might be looking for takedowns here. If he gets on top, it's interesting. So, do you know what? I'm going to pick Yan. Sorry, I'm going to pick Yan. I've just had a feeling in my gut all week. It's made me avoid the Izzy fight. Except I did take the unanimous decision because it was plus 325. I thought that was too good to pass up. But just something in my gut. I'm not going against it. At the current line, I'm going to pick Yan to be losing the fight, but just to catch Izzy out of nowhere. I've just got a funny feeling, so I'm going to pick Yan. It's definitely not a confident pick, and it's a fight, like I say, I've passed on. I probably will put something on Yan inside the distance and Yan KO, very small. I've already got Izzy unanimous, so I don't want to overplay my cards on the fight. I don't want to get wrecked if Izzy knocks him out or Yan wins a decision somehow. But I'm going to put something on Yan, definitely, just because I've got this funny feeling in my water. So that wraps up the card, guys. Good luck with your bets. It's a stacked card. Fingers crossed, no fights for that. Can't wait for it. It's a big card for me, betting-wise. Biggest card of the year. 3 title fights. There's not a bad fight on this card, honestly. If I look through the card, I can't say there's a bad fight. What's the worst fight on this card? Probably, Cruz Medic, but I'm quite intrigued by Medic. I think it'll be an exciting fight. You know, it's tough to pick out a bad fight. I mean, I think the boringest fight potentially on the card is Brady Matthews. Otherwise, I think we've got an entertaining. I mean, I guess Makhachev might lay and pray his way to a win, but I'll give that fight the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, it's just a stacked card. I can't wait for it. So good luck with your bets. I'll be back next week to do the breakdown as we always do. And good luck, everyone. Speak soon.